I did not expect to fall in love with a checklist, but that is exactly how it started. My name does not matter much in this story. What matters is my job. I am a mechanic on a long-haul survey ship called the Halden's Reach. We fix things. We keep the engines breathing and the hull from falling apart in the middle of nowhere. It is not glamorous work, but it is honest work, and I have always liked that about it. Everything changed the day we took a hit. We were passing through a debris field that should have been empty. Old maps are not always right. A piece of rock the size of a delivery truck tore through our outer hull before anyone could blink. No one died, thank the stars, but we lost 4 cabins in the impact. Just gone. Vented to space along with half our spare parts inventory. That left us with a housing problem. 12 crew members, 8 working cabins. Someone was going to have to share. The quartermaster called us into the mess hall to sort it out. I remember standing there, arms crossed, half expecting to get paired with one of the deckhands I already knew. Instead, she read out a name that made half the room go quiet. Vess, engineering. You're with the mechanic. I looked across the room. Vess looked back at me. She was tall, with a smooth gray-blue exoskeleton, and eyes like polished glass. The kind of alien you notice but rarely talk to, because she spent every waking hour buried in engine diagnostics, and never seemed to want company. Her species, the Thren, were known across the trade routes for being brilliant and distant. Perfect engineers. Terrible small talk. She did not look thrilled. Neither did I, if I am honest. But there was no room for complaints. We had 1 cabin between us, and 1 bed. That first night was awkward in a way I still laugh about. I walked in carrying my duffel bag, and she was already there, standing stiff near the far wall like she was waiting for inspection. The cabin was small. 1 bunk, 1 narrow desk, 1 storage locker we would now have to share. "I'll take the floor," I said, dropping my bag. She blinked at me, slow, like I had said something strange. "You will not." "It's fine. I've slept in worse places. That is not the issue." Her voice was clipped, precise, the way she talked about torque settings and fuel mixtures. "Someone of your rank does not sleep on the floor while I take the bed. It would not be right." I almost laughed, but she looked so serious about it that I held it in. We went back and forth for a few minutes, both of us refusing to just take the bed, until I finally grabbed a spare blanket and rigged it into a makeshift wall down the middle of the bunk. A ridiculous solution. It did not really divide anything, but it made her stop arguing, and it made me stop worrying, so we called it fair. "Engineering neutral zone," I said, patting the blanket wall. She stared at it for a long moment, then said, "That is not a real term." "It is now." She did not smile, but something in her eyes shifted, just slightly, like she had filed the joke away somewhere instead of throwing it out. The days that followed fell into a strange rhythm. Our shifts barely overlapped, which helped. I worked mornings on the outer hull repairs. She worked nights running diagnostics on the main reactor. We passed each other like 2 people sharing a hallway rather than a life, most of the time. But small things started happening. She began wiping the grease off her hands before touching anything in the cabin we both used, even though I never asked her to. I started keeping my boots by the door instead of tossing them wherever, because I noticed she flinched, just slightly, at clutter. Neither of us said anything about these changes, we just did them. One night, I came back late from a maintenance shift and found her asleep already, curled on her side of the bed, murmuring something under her breath. At first I thought she was in pain. Then, I realized she was reciting diagnostic checklists in her sleep. Coolant pressure, fuel line integrity, hull stress readings, all mumbled softly into the pillow like a lullaby only an engineer could love. I stood there longer than I should have, just listening. There was something oddly comforting about it, like the ship itself was being looked after even in her dreams. We started eating together too, though neither of us ever officially suggested it. It just became easier to grab food at the same time, instead of coordinating around each other. She liked her meals plain, no seasoning, prepared exactly the same way every time. I liked mine loud with spice, which she called chaotic, the first time she tried a bite off my tray. She said it like an insult. She kept stealing bites anyway. Somewhere in those small routines, a kind of quiet friendship built itself without either of us really deciding to build it. Then came the night. Everything cracked open a little. I had gotten back from a long shift, tired and sore, and found her sitting on the edge of the bed instead of already asleep. That was unusual. Vess did not sit around. She worked, then she rested, with almost no space in between. "You're up late," I said, peeling off my jacket. "I have been thinking," she said. "About the reactor? About this." She gestured vaguely between us, then at the bed, then at the blanket wall still hanging limp between our sides. "About sharing this space." I sat down slowly on my side, giving her room to talk. She did not look at me directly. Thren engineers rarely did when a conversation mattered. "Where I come from," she said, "sharing a sleeping space is not something taken lightly. It is not simply about a lack of rooms. It is a declaration. A kind of trust extended to almost no one outside family." She paused. "I did not choose this arrangement, but I have been living inside it for weeks now, and I do not know what it means to you." I understood then why she had seemed so quiet and careful this whole time. Not cold, like people assumed about her kind. Cautious, like she was carrying something fragile, and was not sure if I even noticed I was holding the other half of it. "It means something to me too," I said. "Just not because of some big ceremony or rule. Humans don't really work that way. We don't wait for the right ritual to let someone matter to us. We just live next to them, day after day, and somewhere along the way, without really announcing it, they start to matter. That's it. That's the whole process." She looked at me then, really looked, her glassy eyes catching the dim light of the cabin. "That seems reckless." "Maybe," I admitted. "But it's honest. I'm not handing you some grand promise. I'm just telling you that these past few weeks, sharing grease-stained gloves and terrible food, and half a bed with a blanket wall, neither of us actually needed, that mattered to me. However small it looks from your side, it wasn't nothing." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, she reached out and moved the blanket wall aside, just enough to fold it neatly at the foot of the bed, instead of splitting it in half. Neither of us said anything else that night. We did not need to. 2 days later, the ship hit real trouble. We were passing through a low-visibility nebula when the main reactor started fluctuating, power dropping in sharp, unpredictable spikes. Alarms blared through the corridors. Crew scrambled to stations. I was pulled straight to engineering, since half the repair team was already stretched thin elsewhere. Vess was already there when I arrived, hands moving fast over a console, calling out numbers to the bridge crew. "Core temperature rising. I need someone in the access shaft, now, to manually reroute coolant flow before we lose containment." "I'll go," I said. She turned sharply. "It's a tight space. Dangerous if the flow shifts while you're inside. Then guide me through it. You know this reactor better than anyone on this ship." For a second, I saw fear flicker across her face, quick and human in a way I had not expected from someone of her species. Then she nodded, sharp and certain, and started talking me through the shaft entrance. I climbed into the narrow access tunnel, heat pressing against me from every side, her voice steady in my earpiece the whole way. "Left valve, quarter turn, now the secondary line. Careful, it will be hot." Every instruction came fast and precise, but underneath the precision, I could hear something else. Worry, held tightly in check because panic would not help either of us survive the next 5 minutes. I worked the valves exactly as she said. Sweat ran down my back, the heat almost unbearable, but her voice never wavered, and somehow, that kept me steady too. When the coolant flow finally stabilized, the temperature readout dropped, and the alarms cut off one by one across the ship. I crawled out of the shaft, soaked and shaking, and found her waiting right at the exit. She did not say anything about protocol or procedure. She just reached out and gripped my arm, hard, like she needed to confirm I was actually solid, and actually there. "You should not have gone in," she said quietly. "You needed someone who trusted your instructions completely," I said. "That was me." She let go of my arm slowly, like it cost her something to do it. A week later, once repairs on the ship were finished, the quartermaster called another meeting. New cabins had opened up. Crew could move back into private quarters if they wanted. She read the list of names, mine included, offering the choice to return to a room of my own. I looked over at Vess, standing near the back of the group, watching me with an expression I could not quite read. I thought about the blanket wall that no longer split the bed in half. I thought about checklists murmured in sleep, and grease wiped carefully off hands, and a voice steady in my ear while the reactor threatened to fail around us. "I'll stay where I am," I said. "Cabin's fine as it is." The quartermaster shrugged and moved on to the next name, like it was nothing important. But across the room, I saw Vess's shoulders relax, just slightly, the way they only ever did when a repair went exactly right. That night, walking back to the cabin together, she finally allowed herself something close to a smile. "You are a strange species," she said. "You have no idea," I said. "I am beginning to," she answered, and for the first time since I had met her, she did not sound like she minded that at all. We reached the cabin, the one bed waiting for us, no blanket wall in sight, and for the first time it did not feel small at all. It felt like exactly enough room for two people who had, somewhere between grease stains and reactor alarms, decided to build something neither of us had planned for, but both of us, quietly, wanted to keep.